Do you feel that the independence of the Fed has been, impacted by these last few months?
I think the independence of any central bank is critically important. I think we have to be accountable. We have to report back and to answer all the questions of either Congress in the U.S.
But I wonder if the critics are onto something when they say maybe the Federal Reserve already violated its independence by, as soon as Jay Powell got into office, and then cutting interest rates 2 months before an election, and then after an election when Donald Trump won, saying, oh, never mind, I'm not going to continue cutting, I'm focused on inflation now.
No, Maria was right on that one. That was Maria debating the Federal Reserve with the president of the European Central Bank. Friday's underwhelming jobs report and this week's inflation report for August could convince the Federal Reserve to restart interest rate cuts. President Trump posted on Friday that, quote, Jerome too late Powell should have lowered rates long ago. He's trying to take control of the board, saying he has candidates to replace Powell. He also wants to fill an open seat with one of his top economic advisors, Stephen Moran. Another member, Lisa Cook, is now facing a federal criminal investigation into whether she submitted fraudulent information on mortgage applications. Pretty serious charge. Joining us now is Pennsylvania Senator Dave McCormick, a member of the Banking, Joint Economic, and Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thank you so much for joining us. Look, you understand business, you understand the economy. That's one of your strengths. I think that's why the people of Pennsylvania put you in there, among many things. The Fed should have cut rates a long time ago, shouldn't they?
Yeah, there's no doubt the Fed was slow in raising rates during the Biden administration, which is part of the reason we had the out-of-control inflation that hurt so many working families in Pennsylvania, and it's been too slow to lower rates now when all the economic indicators would suggest it should. But big picture, what's happening is the biggest pro-growth agenda in decades under President Trump. This is an agenda of tax relief for working families, but also pro-business tax policies. It's energy dominance, it's deregulation, and it's a set of negotiations on tariffs that are actually, when the dust settles on each one of these deals that's announced, is great for consumers and great for American businesses. So we got the wind at our back, and the one thing that's stood in the way is interest rates. And so I'm hoping the Fed will move judiciously and significantly in the upcoming meeting. And I think that's going to make it housing much more affordable and give a real boost to the economy, a boost that is consistent with all the policies the president's put into place.
Yeah, I don't think President Trump has gotten enough credit for the tariff fight in the trillions of dollars that's going to be reinvested or invested into the United States. That's going to pay huge dividends down the road. And I'm going to get to more of that in just a second. But very quickly, I want your thoughts on Secretary Bessent wanting to have a review of the Federal Reserve, kind of top to bottom. I mean, they can't even build a building, let alone doing the basic economics of how to build this economy. What do you want to see out of this review that Secretary Bessent is calling for?
Well, I thought, first of all, I think the Secretary's done a great job, and I thought his recent op-ed that he wrote on this was very smart, because what he essentially said was that the Fed, under extraordinary circumstances, has stepped outside its mandate with quantitative easing and other things, but then has maintained a posture where it's well outside its mandate and using non-traditional tools in a way that's inconsistent with its original mandate. And he wants to look at that very closely and potentially rein in the Fed's role to a much narrower mandate. I think that makes enormous amount of sense. The Fed has huge implications for the economy, for working families. And it's clear, as your earlier segment suggested, that it has become politicized in some ways. And we need an independent Fed, and we need an independent Fed with a clear mandate. And I think that's what the Secretary is seeking.
As we were talking about before, one of the benefits of what President Trump has implemented, the mastery of that, is a reinvestment into manufacturing here in the United States. You, along with President Trump, have been championing bringing shipbuilding back. Explain to us what's going to be happening. I believe it's pronounced Hanwha. Is that how you say that? The $5 billion that's going to go into this. What's happening there?
Well, I was fortunate enough to have dinner with the president Friday night, and we talked about this. What has happened over the last 8 months is truly remarkable in Pennsylvania and around the country based on the president's policies. I mean, there's 4 quick things I'll highlight. One was the Nippon U.S. Steel deal, which created huge investment in steel making, domestic steel making, great for the Mon Valley outside of Pittsburgh in my hometown. Second was this enormous boom in AI energy spending. And Amazon's announced a $20 billion investment. We had an energy and AI summit that the president attended in Pittsburgh with all the CEOs from energy and investing and AI. $92 billion of investment, which is going to create tens of thousands of jobs in Pennsylvania, energy infrastructure and AI data centers. And then, as you mentioned, just last week, Hanwha, based on the president's focus on shipbuilding, bringing back manufacturing in Pennsylvania, sadly, under the failure of previous administrations, we only have about 3% of shipbuilding, global shipbuilding in the United States. So $5 billion in Hanwha in the Philadelphia shipyard, 5,000 new jobs, and we're going to go from building a ship and a half every year to 20 ships. This is what making America great again. This is what rebuilding our manufacturing base looks like, and it's really happening in Pennsylvania, and the president gets all the credit for it.
Yeah, and you know, all those people that didn't listen to Mike Rowe about having a skill set, oh, you want a good high-paying job, listen to Mike Rowe and go out and actually be able to build something. You can get a great high-paying job. Very quickly, Senator, last comment, you've been working in a bipartisan way to actually fight back against Norway, of all places, in their anti-Semitism stance. Tell us about that real quickly.
Well, I was just in Norway over the recess to talk about rebuilding NATO's defense capability, and we met with the Prime Minister. And about that same time we were there, Norway's investment fund had announced that they were going to divest from Caterpillar, a great American iconic company, because those bulldozers were being used in Israel. And I confronted the Prime Minister about it, and he said, well, this isn't a political decision. This is the guidelines of our investment fund. And I said, well, Mr. Prime Minister, that's nonsense. This is clearly a political decision. Yeah. It's anti-business, American business is anti-Israel, and we shouldn't tolerate it. So I've asked our administration, Secretary Lutnick and Ambassador Greer, to look at this and really bring, under the president's leadership, all the economic tools of the American government to work here to try to make sure that the Norwegian government turns around this decision and invest openly in American companies and doesn't politicize its investing against Israel.
Come on, Norway. You know better. We love Norway. We went there last year. I love it. Come on, Norway of all places, yeah. Get your act together. Senator Dave McCormick, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.